Happy Easter. I hope each and every one of you is doing well and you're taking great care of yourselves. If you don't celebrate the holiday, I hope your weekend is restful and recuperative as well. My name is Elise and I am Another Truth here on YouTube. I hope you're doing well. And today is just a slow moving video. I'm going to speak slowly and clearly and softly because that is the type of mood I want for this video. There isn't anything that I can imagine that is triggering about it. It's not a video that everybody wants to hear, but I think that it's important to talk about the things that we remember so fondly and the changes that happen and all of the times other people have made things better, different, more efficient, more accessible, beautifying it, making memories of their own in those spaces. So I wrote something, and it's Day of Errands, Nostalgia, and Discovery in Cambridge. Not the most interesting title, but it's the title of this video. After a long week of meetings, planning sessions, and juggling personal projects, I gave myself the luxury of a day off. It wasn't meticulously mapped out, more of a wander, kind of emotional and creative reset, and a look back in time. I've been working harder lately, which is a good thing. I feel the old stress lifting from my body in a quiet, subtle ways. Even my interest in cooking is returning, and tomorrow, Easter, I'll be preparing a home-cooked meal. Nothing extravagant, but nonetheless very meaningful. I picked up some little fruit tarts and slices of cakes and sweet treats for the day from the local Whole Foods. I also went to Trader Joe's now in that part of Cambridge, which is located in Cambridge Port, which is where I was headed because I wanted to go to Magazine Beach. And this is right near Magazine Beach. Now, the Trader Joe's, I think, was a Medi-Mart, and then it switched to a Trader Joe's in the late 80s. I just remember that because I remember my father taking me there. I think it's been there that long, but I could be mistaken. It has significant meaning because there used to be a Stop and Shop in that lot where a micro center has been, I think, for 30 years or almost 30 years. And so it brings back memories. And I don't know if any of you from the Northeast know about the Stop and Shops, the early version of the Stop and Shops before they were pretty much out of business, but they came back like in the early 2000s, but not at that spot. So, anyway, I considered baking something elaborate like a Charlotte Russe or crafting one of my favorite trifles, but I gave myself a little bit of permission to keep it simple because the cooking itself, the main course and everything else, there's a lot of work. And honestly, I'm more interested in that than having trays of sweets, There's time for that for another day, perhaps around my 52nd birthday. Now, while gathering the ingredients and looking for a place to find a coffee house, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a coffee place. I thought for sure there would be a Starbucks, and I was told there's a Dunkin' Donuts down the street, and then there was a mobile Starbucks. Now, I'm not a real fan of them anymore. I try to stick with local coffees and coffee houses and small business. but I was not able to find any that were available along the way on my route that I could go in and get. So, and I will explain that after. So I did end up stopping at the Micro Center, which is near the famed Shell Station. Well, the Shell Station itself has a notorious history, but I showed, I wrote, I did a video about that, and that Shell Station, which is a landmark here, a landmark in Cambridge. I don't live in Cambridge, but I'm close to it. So anyway, back to the Micro Center. So I went there to pick up some peripherals for my new MacBook. Though I had initially considered some of the Apple accessories, I ended up finding accessories and peripherals that work just as well and that cost half as much and that felt more like me. I even left with a few extras, a much needed measuring tape, a small flashlight because I lost mine, and some random refreshments with an interesting backstory for later. That will be saved for tomorrow. Those spontaneous, practical purchases that somehow feel like little treats and wins. Again, I had hoped to grab a coffee afterward, but realizing that the Starbucks I remembered near Magazine Beach had disappeared. Again, I just didn't feel like walking to the mobile Starbucks or settling for Dunkin'. Instead, I crossed Memorial Drive and sat by the Charles River, which is known as Magazine. Well, there's the Charles River, but Magazine Beach is where the Charles River runs through. And I believe I've showed some footage of that. So I just sat there calmly sipping water from my water bottle and letting the breeze and the geese keep me company. That patch of land near the old MDC pool is full of memories. You don't see it in here, but I'm kind of living through my memories at the moment. As a child, it was a state pool. I don't see that listed. I don't know if it's part of the boat club that's around there or if it is a state pool. But it never really looked that clean even when I was a child. But the pool's still there. But I'm unsure if it's available for everybody, how things have changed. The playground, the tree I used to climb, and the wading pool have all been lost to time. That wading pool now is buried with the grass and everything. Still, the space remains beautiful, wide, especially in the warmer months. That day it was calm and grounding. When I was a child, there used to be a playground. It stood there for decades and it was falling apart. And I think they revamped it maybe many, many years ago, but it's disappeared. And so did that big tree. I'm not too certain what happened to it. But I kind of mourn the loss of those things because those connected to my happier times in childhood. I was thinking back because earlier in the day, I had planned to visit the REI near Lechmere for a specific pair of trainers. Now, I had been researching for a good pair of trainers, and I found them at REI at a great price. But when I checked the hours, I discovered the store had closed earlier this month. It had been a low-performing location, and honestly, I could see why. It was in a difficult spot I'll probably just order directly from the brand instead. No big deal. Just another sign of the city shifting and things changing. So I enjoyed my time quietly, giving the geese their space and watching them do their thing as nature intended, while I remained as quiet and peaceful and as calm as I could be for their sake. It was pleasant, but I decided that it was time to get back home. On the way home, now I took an Uber back home because I just didn't want to take public transportation and I wanted to have a rest for a little while and have someone else drive. On the way home, I passed by something that always makes me pause: the old White Tower Hamburgers building in Central Square. I believe it was built in the 30s, and it's one of those places that people often confused with White Castle, but this was White Tower, a similar fast food chain that had its own identity with a White Castle-like structure and nurse uniform towerettes. Now, some people said it was a carbon copy of it, and I don't even know how the burgers tasted or if they had sliders. Apparently, it closed in the early 1970s, but the building remained. Over time, it became the Tasty Sandwich Shop, and I vaguely remember that, but I'm not certain. I know it was a Moody's um, falafel place for a long time, but that ceased operation in 2018 when it converted into Aleppo Palace, which served Middle Eastern food and I think vegetarian Middle Eastern food. But it had ceased operation last year. Now, it was meant to reopen as Chateau Blanc Cafe, but it's still sitting eerily empty. I hope it finds new life soon because I'd much rather support a small local cafe in a historical building with that experience than look for corporate coffee I don't enjoy. And I knew it had not opened because there were no reviews. There was an anticipatory page, a web page, but no real menu, no proof. If it had been open in July, I would have noticed that. Now, my other option was Andala's Cafe, which is right there on, is it on the River Street side? Yeah, it's on the River Street side, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong, because I think Green Street cuts through that. That's a Palestinian restaurant, I believe. Um, I don't really like the coffee there, but I love the tea and the breakfast items. It's wonderful. But I didn't go. Now, on the trip back, I thought about the old McDonald's on Massachusetts Avenue. It's a place I remember from my childhood for many different reasons. It was built amid the controversy in the 1970s after the demolition of a 125-year-old building, and it's one of the last long-standing chains in the area. I do remember the old layout. For the life of me, I cannot remember the content creator who looked at one of the oldest closed McDonald's around. Now, I don't know where. I just watched the video today. If I find it, I will share it on my community or engagement post section because I thought that was really fascinating. Those tiles look so familiar. Now, I can't explain the oddity of that particular McDonald's. This one in Cambridge was not that odd, but the tiling was very familiar to me. Anyway, I remember the old layout. Well, some of it. The birthday parties, the Polaroids of the birthday parties decorated on the walls, and the kindness of one of the managers who knew my family. And right next door to it was a Church's Fried Chicken, where my dad would sometimes pick us up food after a martial arts class on a weekend before he went to the Samaritans. And almost always after Samaritans, he would go to Dunkin' Donuts and bring us back a dozen. And that was probably one of the few times he showed us kindness. Now, that Church's is long gone now. Central Square has changed. Many long running businesses have closed, and local businesses have closed due to soaring rental costs. But it still hums with the spirit of what it once was. There is also on Massachusetts Ave in Central Square a shop called Teddy's Shoes. There's a pair of dance shoes I have my eye on, and I'll probably purchase those shoes. And that was a place where I got dance shoes for ballet as a child and tap shoes among dress shoes. Again, it's a wonderful, long-standing local place with that local flavor. So, on my way back, I thought about a pair of boots I had seen online. It was the vintage Madonna boots from the movie Desperately Seeking Susan. And that was sold by Bakers and Leeds Shoes back in the 80s, 85, I believe. They were going for $1,200 on eBay or Etsy, something like that. Definitely not in my size and way out of my budget. But I've been thinking about recreating them for a while. I've been scouring thrift stores looking for a similar shape I can modify, maybe even reconstruct with better materials, at least to make the boots look more like the movie boots. I'll likely head to the Garmick district in Cambridge to source materials. I've got a 1980s theme party coming up in a few months, which I will attend, and those boots would be a perfect centerpiece. Though if I do make them, I'm not sure if I'd want to wear them just anywhere. Maybe for just something special for myself. As I continued to travel through my Uber, I made my final stop at home. I decided that after I put everything away, all my purchases, I went outside to the park with homemade coffee, and I brought along my miniature watercolor set, a tiny kit where the brush contains water, so it's perfect for painting on the go. I painted and worked in my passport-size traveler's journal, which I have from the company directly, which I have partitioned for journaling, painting, stamping memories, and dreaming. It's small but meaningful. A creative container that lets me reconnect with my childhood dreams and ideas, things I want to bring back into my creative life now. As someone who grew up feeling emotionally and socially deprived, those internal conversations with myself, and yes, even with the stuffed animals, the Barbie mannequin heads where you could cut the hair and put the makeup on, whatever you want, where I would begin to shape my voice. It's part of why I want to do the work that I do, to create, encourage, and be of use. Now, I was raised in Cambridgeport, in a neighborhood full of cultural richness. My early education celebrated multiculturalism and community. That foundation, diverse and formative, was taken from me when we had to move, but its long lasting impact shaped everything I care about now. Now that I recall, one of the unexpected gifts during the day, during my journey, was reconnecting with my old home in that area. I saw a man outside the house working on something. He said good morning, and I returned the greeting. I mentioned I used to live there as a child. We had a warm conversation and even exchanged contact information. Felt like a gentle closure or maybe a new chapter, a kind of feeling I hadn't anticipated. Now, while I took the Uber home, I passed by a set of old freight train tracks. Now, I don't know if these are the same tracks from the Boston and Maine that run through Twin City Plaza in Somerville from East Cambridge and forward. I'm not sure. I have to look at the line, but I did see some old rolling stock parked off at this building on these tracks that was bedazzled with graffiti art. What memories it had brought back. The memory of those rail systems, of how much cargo once moved through this city, felt like a snapshot of another era. Like so many places I saw that day, it reminded me how Cambridge has evolved and yet still carries echoes of its past. There's so much more to say, so much more experiences I want to share. You know, I had anticipated to make it to the Coast Cafe in River Street in Cambridge, like I had hoped, but I decided that that's where I'll go for my birthday. What's great about it, it's soul food, but healthier soul food, or that's what they advertise as. Now, I remember that building, and I thought that that was one of the community stores. We used to visit small convenience stores, but I think it was the Western Ave one rather than the one on River Street. I'm not too sure what that shop was, but I thought there used to be a laundromat next to it. I can't remember. I have a relationship with these spaces. I mean, it's temporary, just like this life, but it means memories and connection. So once I go to the Coast Cafe, I will do a video on that and show you. This weekend, though, I'm staying in to cook and reflect. Monday is Patriots Day, and there may be a local parade, though we have the marathon in Boston. Maybe I'll take my journal, some homemade coffee, and go sit in the parks, not to do anything, just to be. And this just shows very quickly that things can change so quickly, that places I had expected to be have moved on for whatever reason. And what I have left are the memories. But I can't live on the memories alone. I have to make new memories. And I hope to do that soon and with you. Take care. Have a great evening and weekend.